On this episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast, Andy and I are chatting about appropriately distributing freedom to our kids.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
You know what, Joel?
What?
I'm going to edit that so it says Andy Lehman first.
Oh, okay.
All of these years, and I'm getting jealous that you're mentioned first.
That's true. That's true. I thought you wrote the original script when we set that up.
I actually probably did.
But now you're regretting it. I get it. I get it. It's fair.
You know,
5 years in, now we've been doing it this way. I see why it's probably just slowly been building up within you over time.
It's okay. The official LLC for Dudes and Dads Media is registered at my address.
Thank you. That's true. Andy gets all the bills, which is important this time when we're getting ready to file the taxes. Dudes and Dads Media, LLC.
There you go.
Hey, everybody. Hi.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome. It is the month of February, Andy, and you know what that means.
It means that
you and I are leaving Indiana as soon as possible.
That is both true for both of us.
For both of us. Andy's going to be down in sunny Florida, and Andy and your lovely wife, Julie.
Correct.
Because and you're doing a little extended.
I'm not going alone.
You're not going alone. Andy's just leaving for Florida. He said, sorry, family.
I'm leaving.
Daddy needs sun.
I'm out.
I'm going. You're headed down, obviously, going to be handling some important technical needs for an event that you're doing, a conference down there. But in addition to that, Andy, you shared some really special news. You're making this trip a little bit longer.
We are. It is our 20th wedding anniversary this year.
So beautiful.
And so we are taking some extra time and we are spending it together.
You're going to Disney it up, aren't you?
I am.
Nice.
It is.
Just as adults, too.
As just the two of us, and it's going to be great.
There's no shame in it. This past June, fortunately enough, our national agency, we had our conference out in Anaheim, and they sent all of us to a late hours Disneyland adventure, and It was great. And you know what, I will say, just as there were just adults walking around Disneyland, and I thought to myself, this is okay too.
You don't have to do this.
I wasn't pushing a stroller. I wasn't trying to keep track of people. It was great.
Well, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it too. Just spending some extra time with Julie. And the nice thing about this is we were just there not that long ago, and so we kind of have this. We have an idea, of what we want to do.
Yes, a strategy,
right? A strategy, if you will. So that's
great. Yeah, so Andy's headed for sunny Florida. I'm headed for sunny. We hope sunny, and recently very rainy, but hopefully it's cleared up. Tucson, Arizona.
Okay,
we're gonna get some baseball. We're gonna get a baseball tournament in down there. So really looking forward. It is around this time of year. It's right around mid-February every year, Andy, where I just really start to feel the need for sunshine. We've had a lot of clouds. It was clearer today. We've had a couple clear days, but my gosh, the permaclouds were very intense. Ridiculously intense. And sometimes you just gotta go. You just gotta say, I don't I got to call in the support. Whoever's got to come and take care of everybody else. I've got to head for the vitamin D. So that's what we're going to do. We're looking forward to it. Andy, excited for our conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one tonight. Like you said, we were talking a little bit about cutting the cord, and not on the cable TV, but actually
don't cut that cord.
Cutting the umbilical cord, if you will.
Yes.
But first, Dudes and Dads podcast is supported by Everence, dedicated to providing financial solutions through asset management, charitable giving, banking, and other services. More at everence.com/Michiana. Securities offered through Concourse Financial Group, Securities Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC.
Thank you, Andrew. So, Andy, my wife had this conversation. We had this conversation this evening, actually, about some things, some recent things in our life, in the life of our children. We've had one of those. How shall I put it? Experiences where you realize you're like, oh yes, my kids are definitely getting older. They are definitely thinking about new things, new opportunities, and they are definitely requesting, either directly or indirectly, more freedoms
Okay, yeah.
in their life. And sometimes as a parent, you want to say to yourself, I'm ready to, I'm not hovering over my kid. I'm not overly controlling their life. I'm not trying to manage every single piece. You want to really, really believe that. And then they push that button.
They push the button.
And you say to yourself, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I thought I was ready, but I don't know if I'm ready for this. And you do feel the sense of wanting to regain some control, perhaps, or kind of come back in and tidy things up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then Jackie said to me last night this evening as we were talking, she said, it also feels like the older, there's some sort of tipping point where, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that, like as they're approaching high school, where the amount of freedom, she feels like the amount of freedom, I think I'm articulating this correctly, that freedom, the freedom bell curve, whatever, just really starts taking off, where you were introducing throughout their childhood, adolescence, increased small freedoms, giving them more space to kind of make decisions for themselves. But then all of a sudden, the momentum of all of that really takes off.
Yeah.
And we're, now they are, I don't even know if they're necessarily asking, but you're definitely feeling that, like, you have more and more opportunities or occasions where you have to say yes or no to something. Like yes, it's okay if you go and do this thing, or if you start add this to your routine or whatever, where I'm not in direct proximity to you.
Right.
Or no, it's not okay. And that's like the frequency of that seems to kind of get going faster and faster. And so you can feel like you're unprepared, feel like you're caught up. So as Andy and I have been talking, approaching this show, Andy has you've got Micah who's staring right down the barrel,
right,
of full-blown adulthood.
For real. Well, he turned 18 in December.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of those things that has really got me thinking lately too, because I've seen, I want to let him make his decisions.
Right.
And he is 18, but also
he reminds you of that regularly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But also as a parent, I think that I still struggle with letting him make those decisions. I think for me, actually, it was easier once he turned 18, because then I was like, okay, he's 18.
Yeah.
I should actually let go. So,
well, and I mean, because there's an expectation, right, of like society, quote unquote,
right,
holds him to a certain standard or a level of,
right.
I mean, I remember when I turned 18, I had this awareness. I think my dad explained it to me somehow. I had this awareness of like I could get in real trouble for things.
Right. Yeah.
The way I would be handled within the legal system was a little bit different. Not that I was out causing all kinds of trouble, but again, the consequences, the implications of reaching a certain age.
Oh, yeah.
And right, it's different. What has been for you guys? And I think thinking of Micah, well, I'm thinking of Eli, who's not too far behind. What have the conversations been with you and Julie about, like, how you decide when to sort of loosen the reins a little bit on something, or have you done that at a time where you have, and then you've regretted that, or had to pull back a little, where it was too much or maybe not enough and you had to adjust? Like, obviously it is nothing but adjustment. Like, that feels like,
right. It
feels like what our life is like.
It's
all just a bunch of adjustments.
No, I mean, I think that it's been, I know that I was more tight on the reins, as far as like, no, I want you to do this. I'm the parent.
Yeah.
And we're Julie was a little bit more appropriate in her, like, okay, they need to make some decisions on their own, and they may fail.
Yeah.
And so, I think, like I said, I think when he's been since he's been 18, it's been a little bit easier for me because I've been able to say, okay, no, like you are 18, make those decisions on your own.
You mentioned like I think getting at the idea of that there's consequences now.
Well,
yeah, and not saying that he's like, oh, hell, like there's been all these dire consequences, but consequences are good and bad consequences, right? There's sort of the world's pushback or a response to what we do, the choices we make, and we feel those more directly. Have you been concerned about like your hesitancy? Is it a concern with consequence, like because of consequences, or
no? I don't think so. I think for me, it's more of just allowing him to make those decisions on his own. You know what I mean? Like up until now, I guess for me, I didn't want to see him fail anything.
Sure.
Right. And that's
and what parent does, right?
Right. But at the same time, allow them to make their own decisions.
Yep.
And so for me, it's been especially hard, I think, as he's getting older. Now, I do say this, Joel. I think that it's helped a little bit since he started driving too.
Oh, sure.
Because like those things, I mean, that's one of those times where as a driver, he's making his own decisions in there, and I'm not necessarily going to be there every time he's making those decisions. And I had to let go, and that was hard. Even like when he got his license, that was hard to go, okay, and watch him drive away.
Yeah.
Without us in the car.
Yeah.
It's like, that very first day he drove himself to school, it was a pretty big deal. And it's like, wanted to bring some tears to your eyes, right?
Well, and like, I'm not to freak you out, because obviously you've thought of all these things, right? But like, there's so much that can happen.
Oh, right.
Right. Like, there's all these possibilities.
Yes.
Right. And I just right now, like I so appreciate the season that your guys are in, and
we're walking it for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because I have a fair amount of anxiety about that. Like I really do, and I am wondering if our parents felt I just wondered if they felt it to the same degree, or is like our anxiousness about those milestones. Is it different? I just wonder if it's different in our generation.
Oh, and here's what I think, though. I think that as we grew up, I mean, definitely things were different, right? I mean, like we were driving I almost said our motorcycles, not our motorcycles, our bicycles. We thought they were motorcycles, right? Around town, and things were like today. Yeah. Well, for one, I don't live in a place. I mean, my kids ride them up and down our road, but we live in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
But even for you guys, your kids probably drive them around the neighborhood, but they're not riding across town in Goshen, are they?
No, not yet.
See, and that's at Aaron's age, your oldest. I was doing that already,
and it's so funny because this past summer the boys had an opportunity. I came over to ride their bikes down to school,
and you guys don't live super far.
It's
from
not far away. But
they've
got to go out on they've got to be out on the county road for a little bit, and I was like the level. I just realized it's like the level of thought and hesitation I had about that was like a little much. Like it was, because it's like, well, doggone it, they've got to ride their bikes sooner or later because they're now like they want to go to the park, and they want to go and do stuff like that, when I don't always have where it's like, either I can't do that right now, but if you guys want to, you can.
Right. So you're giving them some freedom. And that's the same thing. Like, I think, for us, I would say it's really helped. Like, again, going back to that was really just the start of it, is Micah. Obviously he's our oldest, so that's where it starts all the time. But, and I mean, obviously every kid is a little bit different. There are some things that I trust other kids, some of my other kids with differently than I do others, just because the way their nature is.
Yep.
If you're listening, guys, it's not that I don't trust you. That's not what I said. Don't hear that. But it started with the driving, right?
Yeah.
And then also giving them freedom in making decisions what they wanted to spend their money with. And so,
sure, yeah.
And so again, we've mentioned it before. Yeah. We do have the green light card, and that's been great for them because it allows us to say you have these chores to do, and you can easily on your phone see what money you have in your bank account. You can spend that. You can move that around to savings and spending. And we've talked to them about, like, we want you to save. We want you to, donate, do your whole tithe type thing to the church or something that you, a ministry that you feel is important. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the church, right? But we've also talked about that, and so it like I said, it started with them driving, but then now because all of our kids, even Hattie, has her own card, and it's like, if you guys want to spend that money, that's fine, you have it. But, and then we remind them, we are going on this trip or something that, like, if you get there and don't have any money, I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy you your gift because you had the money.
Right.
And so it kind of started there and has moved. So for us, it's been easier to kind of let go in that aspect because they've now had the ability to make their own decisions on what they want. And that's been good too, because it's helped me to let them make some of those decisions. And then for me to also say, okay, I don't necessarily agree with what you bought or, like how you spent your money, but this is a good to know. Like, these are things you should have maybe thought of beforehand. Now you got to figure out how to get extra money or how to get the money for what you want. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, for us.
Yeah. I'm just thinking a lot about their other freedoms in their friendships and relationships, like particularly as because I know this is coming, this is on the horizon, like the whole boyfriend girlfriend thing, right? And number one, obviously setting our expectations, being very clear about our expectations, boundaries, all of those sort of things in those relationships. But then also, like, they've got to learn how to interact with, our boys have to learn how to interact respectfully and appropriately with girls at some point.
Right.
And they need, and I want that to be, yes, like right now we're a little bit more like the boundaries are closer, right there, but I hopefully am not going to be interacting with them the same way on that topic when they're 18 as I am when they're 14.
Sure.
Right.
Well, you hope that they've taken some of your values and some of your advice, but then they're 18 that you can let some of that go, because again, they're making that decision because they are 18 at that point.
Right. And our role, and this, I've heard this from so many people, a lot of a lot of clinical folks that really have a lot of specialty in adolescent development and things. You really are trying to move in those later teen years to being the friend and mentor role, and far less the constant supervisory parent. And if you're still in that, if you're still in a high hover mode, over your kids, like there are some, we don't think about this, there really are some negative, like some serious negative effects that come from that long term into young adulthood. And so that's the thing that, like, I'm just looking forward to and trying to be aware of is, we've all seen under parenting, right? The super hands-off approach. Just, it's like giving a kid just a loaded gun and just saying, hey, whatever, just go do what you will. That's irresponsible. Parents, though, who err on the other side would probably say, like, hey, I'm going to be a responsible parent. I'm going to make sure that I have a clear presence in my kid's life and the managing of their decisions for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree too, there's a concern, and parents, I get this, I feel it. There is a concern. I don't want to see harm come to my kid, right?
Right.
I don't want
Yeah.
to have them experience bad things. But the truth of it is that is part of the learning curve. You know, and Andy, as always, I do like to search out a few scholarly articles on this topic.
Of course.
Right. So there's a couple of them that I just pulled from. There was an interesting, and usually I just like read the abstracts of these kind of scholarly papers just because it gives a summary of what they find. There was a 2013 article entitled "Helping or Hovering: The Effects of Helicopter Parenting on College Students' Well-Being." And so this is what the study is it follows kind of did a survey of these college students and basically asked the kind of parenting style that was used, and then what the psychological results and impact of that parenting style were once they left the house and had to go into college. And college, you're making all these decisions for yourself. All of a sudden, you're like I remember my freshman year of college having this clear like I could do whatever I wanted right now, and there's no one here to tell me different. Like, now there might be some consequences to this, good or bad or whatever, but really have all of a sudden just kind of awakening to your own agency a little bit, right?
Right.
And that's when we find that happens in college. And so this article reports that says parental involvement is related to many positive child outcomes, but if not developmentally appropriate, could be associated with higher levels of child anxiety and depression. Few studies have examined the effects of over-controlling parenting or helicopter parenting in college students. Some studies have found that college students of over-controlling parents report feeling less satisfied with family life and have lower levels of psychological well-being. This study examines self-determination theory as the potential underlying mechanism explaining this relationship. College students completed measures of helicopter parenting, autonomy, supportive parenting, depression, anxiety, satisfaction with life, and basic psychological needs satisfaction. Students who reported having over-controlling parents reported significantly higher levels of depression and less satisfaction with life. Furthermore, the negative effects of helicopter parenting on college students' well-being were largely explained by the perceived violation of students' basic psychological needs for autonomy and competence. So these young people felt like they couldn't have really any sense of whether they knew anything, like enough on their own. So this sense of competence, you've touched on this, the sense that, like, for Micah or any of your kids, that, hey, if I'm not here, you still know what to do. Like so I've imported my, my values, what we value here. We know how we do life here. Now when I'm not here, that you have the skills to navigate those things on your own, and that that you can. And if you know that you can, the positive psychological effects that come from that. Right.
Well, I think too that you've been given trust ahead of time. I mean, like, obviously we've all broken our parents' trust, but I can't say all of us. I know I have, but you may be different.
No,
but for that, the fact that because I have, I mean, like I've been able to be trusted, and I've been able to make my own decisions while I'm still at home, while I'm still experiencing my parents going, okay, but like the chances then of me when I'm away, of me making good decisions in their eyes is going to be better, because again, like you said, they've instilled their values in me, and I've had that opportunity to make those choices on my own. And so when I go away, the chance of me going, I'm in college, I can do whatever I want, is going to be less. I mean, you're going to still get a little bit of that.
Yep.
But it's going to be a lot less. You're going to know that there's still responsibility. You're less likely, I think, to feel of going, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I want, because you're going to know there are consequences, even though my parents aren't here to administer those consequences, if you will.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And you know, the helicopter parenting phenomenon. I mean, it comes often from a place of I want to believe it can come from a place of good intentions, of a desire to see our kids succeed and to help usher them through. The research, however, says, and what the common experience of all of this is that it actually accomplishes the very opposite of what a parent desires. And you know, and again, that image of a helicopter parent, right? So constantly hovering over their kid, managing their decisions. The number of stories that I have heard of, like when we're talking about college age students here, once they've grown up under that helicopter parenting, the number of stories that are out there of parents coming to their kids like college interviews, like in sitting down in what is designed to be a conversation between administrators and admissions staff and the student, and the parent is sitting there asking the questions, doing the talking, you know, overseeing that whole phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you imagine? And I'm sure this has happened. In fact, I know I've heard stories about this too, of out in the HR world, parents sitting in on their kids' like first job interview. Like being a part of that process. Now, I will tell you, if I'm interviewing someone whose parent is sitting down next to them,
they're probably not going to get the job.
They're not going to get the job. That's red flag. Red flag. But yeah, I again was reading in Reason magazine here. They have an article that came out back in October of this past year. And they were discussing some results of another, and I'll find it here what study it was, but the article reads that young people are suffering an explosion of mental health issues. The fact that they are is no secret. Anxiety and depression are through the roof, and social scientists are scrambling to find the cause so that whatever is driving kids over the edge can be undone. Extensive use of social media and electronic devices, exacerbated by the isolation of pandemic-era lockdowns, has taken much of the blame. But recent research says that psychological distress more likely results from depriving kids of unsupervised freedom. That's a larger problem that could take longer to fix. From 2009 to 2017, major depression amongst 20 to 21-year-olds more than doubled, rising from 7 to 15%. Gene Tweenage, a professor of psychology at San Diego State University, wrote in 2019. Depression surged 69% amongst 16 to 17-year-olds. Serious psychological distress, which include feelings of anxiety and hopelessness, jumped 71% amongst 18 to 25-year-olds from 2008 to 2017. This is pre-pandemic years. By 2017, 1 out of 5 12 to 17-year-old girls had experienced major depression in the previous year. The situation worsened during the isolation of the pandemic lockdowns. 46% of parents say their teen has shown signs of new or worsening mental health condition since the start of the pandemic in March of 2020, according to a University of Michigan survey. So they have this whole conversation around, you know, what's really going on. That social media has been blamed a lot for this. What they come back with, however, is to say that social media, that they're looking and saying actually there's a heavy correlation between the patterns of behavior and over supervision and over parenting, and that phenomenon drives kids to social media, because in social media they have some level of self-autonomy.
Right. They're in control there.
Right.
They have the control because they can speak with what they want. Their parents aren't aware necessarily of what they're doing in it either.
They're kind of the captain of that they're the master of that universe a little bit. And their parents, as I have often found and you know tried to keep up, but you know, we're not native speakers to so much of that. And there's so there's whole new horizons and things that they can be involved in. And they really are in control that, that we don't quite feel like we can catch up with. In a 2022 Pew Research survey of teens, 35% reported using social media almost constantly. The convergence of deteriorating youth mental health and technology inevitably attracts political tension. GOP presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy, his name is challenging, which he's no longer a presidential hopeful, but nevertheless, he wants to ban social media use for those under age 16. This was a major platform.
Oh, interesting.
For him. Yeah. But what if compulsive use of smartphones and TikTok is more of a symptom than a cause? And then it kind of goes into this whole, the focused looking into social media to describe what's, the cause of these mental health concerns, but really, it coming down to a loss of independence. As their paper title suggests, the authors attribute the rise of youth mental health problems to increasing supervision, loss of freedom, and overprotectiveness. What is often referred to as helicopter parenting. The authors cite evidence that play is essential to children's well-being, and that play-like activity appears to be the most satisfying and to fit most closely with the children's own concept of play when it occurs away from adult oversight and intervention. We've talked a lot about this with the nature of sports today. Unorganized play of any sport is almost unheard of now. You have adults organizing children's play. Right. In almost every sector.
Right. So we don't have as many people just going out and shooting hoops out in the yard.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
going down to the playground and
pickup game. But again, that some of that could be from just I think all of it stems, not all of it. I think a lot of it stems back to the nature that I was talking about earlier, though. Like our world just isn't as open. And again, I don't know. I'm blaming social media for that, and the internet and the instant, like we know now that there's pedophiles out there. I mean, we knew that before, right? Like my parents weren't dumb,
right?
They knew that there were people looking to do harm kids,
right?
But because of the fact that now we see it so much, and we know that there's some in the same town or in the similar town or a town over, like we know that more. And so I think that we as parents have become more protective.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Right.
I mean, I think we obviously need to protect our kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so I think some of that free playtime that we were talking about before doesn't exist as much.
Yeah, because you're like, well, where else do I need to be looking to protect my children?
Right.
What other dangers are out there that I was previously unaware of? And those are definitely real concerns and things that I've definitely felt. This also, and that I've heard this a lot from parents these days with regard to, we've talked a lot about driver's licenses and freeing kids up. The article states here that driver's licenses are harder to come by for teens than in the past, limiting mobility. In 1984, nearly half of America's 16-year-olds could drive legally. As of 2021, a quarter could. Work rules and minimum wages restrict employment opportunities for teens. Curtailing options and freedom for kids is often done in the name of keeping kids safe, but it involves bad trade-offs. I know lots of young people who are pushing off. They're just not excited about getting their license.
Yeah.
They're not, those sort of things in the same way.
But okay, so I'm tying this all back to the world being worse, and I'm not trying to be a doomsday person, but really, honestly, though, I mean, Joel, look at it for you and I.
Yeah,
like we couldn't wait to get out and get our license so we could go to the mall, we could do whatever. Kids these days, I mean, don't need to do that. They have their friends right here.
Right.
If they need to shop, they open up Amazon.
Right.
They bring it here.
Right.
They're able to get what they need here on this phone.
Right.
And so there's no need for them to go out and have the freedoms of a job and freedoms of, I mean, yes, they can go see their friends, but at the same time, like, again, their friends I'm saying this in air quotes, their friends are here on this phone.
Right. And that's the so what's the rush? The fact is, though, you are exercising a considerable more amount of autonomy and self decision making when you get in the car and go places, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Well, and I've thought of this recently. I was like, okay, I didn't have a cell phone, and I literally was driving me and my sister to a concert in Springfield, Illinois, or something like that, like 3 hours away.
Yep.
And I didn't have a GPS. Google wasn't there telling me which way to turn.
Yeah.
And I'm bad of that right now. I'm like right now I'm like, okay, if I don't exactly know the best way to get to somewhere across town, you know what I'm doing? I'm pulling up Google and I'm I'm chatting on Google. So
right. I still remember going to my first back in the day, the Vans Warped Tour. Remember going there with friends in Chicago, and like I think it was like, man, I was a freshman. My first one was a freshman in high school, going with some upperclassmen. Like, my mom let me do that. Thanks, Mom, by the way, because it was a memory. I think that went a total of 3 times. I mean, it's significant for me, but I look at that now. I'm like, would I let my kid like next year get in the car
and drive to Chicago?
To Chicago?
Well, but here's the thing. I think that has helped me a little bit. So this last year, Micah had a job that he was building pole barns.
Yeah, he was a real job,
right? And like he was going early in the morning, and he was driving sometimes up to Michigan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of times he was riding with people too.
Yeah,
but he was driving up to South Bend, driving down to Warsaw, driving, like he was driving these places that he didn't even know where he was. Like the night before, I didn't even know. Like I'd look at Live 360 and be like, oh, he's somewhere away. Like, and so that's helped me kind of loosen up on that a little bit. But I think that you nailed it on the head there, Joel, when you said those memories that we look back on. Like when I get together with my sister and her husband, what are the memories that we're talking about? The times that we drove, in the middle of the night, one Saturday night, we decided to go out an hour and a half to our church camp just because we could and lay under the stars. Like just the stupid stuff like that.
Right.
But things that made the memories that I'm hoping my kids have the memories that they can look back and do the same thing.
Yeah. And those are so many of those memories. I mean, to the point, are things that were not being supervised or managed by our parents.
Right.
Right.
Dumb stuff.
Some great stuff, some not so great stuff, but that's part of growing up. I think the research, I think, as it's emerging, is it's interesting that we have a lot of people that in their adolescent life that are having some bad experiences because of their parents have been overly involved in their life, and it's creating some serious roadblocks for them psychologically. Their mental health is deeply affected, and they're all saying basically because I didn't have the means to gain confidence about my own choices. And really the only way, any of us, like in a job, the way we gain confidence in our own competency is to try stuff. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. And we learn. If that opportunity is taken from us by our parent, then we have elongated adolescence, we have delayed learning, and then when more responsibility is put upon us, and we don't feel like we can measure up to the level of responsibility, because my handler always always dealt with us, right? Like our kids don't know what to do, and so that's the one side, and parents, like I feel this tension. We're told that if we underparent, we're irresponsible in setting our kids up for all kinds of emotional distress and all kinds of things. And now we're also told if we overparent, the same thing. It's like the same.
Right. It's
the same thing will happen. Right?
But as I want you to know, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Right. We all make mistakes. Like I think if I look back on my parenting for all of my kids, and granted, I'm not anywhere near done parenting. I know every time we get together with my sister and her husband, they're like, we're almost empty nesters. You guys we're close. And I'm like, I know we've got a few more years, but no, like it's one of those things, like, you're doing a good job, but I want to hear from you. If you can call our voicemail line at 574-213-8702. I want to hear what your thoughts on this parenting thing is. Like, how
are you doing it? Like, what's working, what's not?
Yeah.
And ultimately, the way we don't even know that sometimes we get immediate feedback on this, but we really don't ultimately know how we're succeeding on this until it actually gets tested out in the world of their own independence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, when you see, I'm thinking about Aaron and like I'm having a lot of these experiences, Andy, and you have already walked this road of, like, it's just getting realer and realer. Like, I have him here for 4 more years. You know, and then that 4 will be to 2, and then it'll be down to 1, and then it's going to be, what's next?
Right. And I think that's been one of the scariest things for me with Micah being 18 is I've realized, like, he's 18. He's still a junior this year, so he'll be in school, living at home 1 more year.
Yep.
But after that, like, I don't know where he's going to end up.
Yeah.
And I know he's going to do a great job wherever he's at.
Absolutely.
But I am also realizing that as a parent, I only have essentially 1.5 more years of time to invest in him.
Yeah, at this level
where we're more on a parent son relationship as opposed to I mean, he's always going to be my son, but where that relationship turns more to a peer.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's been tough. Joel, what are your takeaways from this?
Here's the deal. I just think we we need to be able to support each other as parents. We need to come alongside of each other and remind each other that we're doing the best that we can, and that there is there's not a manual to this thing. And when here's the we've said this in various ways, various times in the show, but here's what I want to encourage you. If you see a parent out there who's really just trying their best and you see their kid doing good stuff, tell them, hey, I love to see when your kid does this or this or this, or hey, maybe you didn't know, but I heard him have this conversation with one of their teammates or friends or whatever, and I was just really, really impressed by it. Or help each other affirm that their kid is capable and competent to do really, really cool things in life. And let that other people that are not a biased parent, but are just are outside person looking in, that perspective can be so helpful. So I would just say, if you have friends who have kids who are in those years where, man, they're kind of gaining further independence, and they're growing up, they're making their way through adolescence. Let's all be on the same team together. Let's cheer each other on.
Yes, I agree.
What about for you, Andy? What's the big one for you? What are you thinking about now?
I think for me, my main thing is just investing and letting my kids know how much they're loved, but also being able to step back. And unfortunately, I think that the other kids are going to have a different experience than what Micah had, because I'm going to see the importance of giving him that freedom and that ability. So I'm going to, unfortunately, the first kids always get screwed, right?
Yeah, that's right. They're the guinea pig, right? We'll tune some things in after that. Yeah.
And it just unfortunately, that's what happens. But yeah, that's really my takeaway, is just being able to take and have my kids experience the freedom. I'm going to give them, I want to try to give them more freedom as far as making their own decisions. Well, they're still under my roof, because I think that's one of the big things that hit me in our conversation tonight is if they're allowed to make those mistakes now and make them gracefully, then in college, or when they move, not whatever they choose to do after high school, they're more likely to do it. I don't want to say do it right, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like they're
they
more
can
likely
fail. They can fail safe now. They can fail safer now. Even if we're even if we are appropriately parenting, I mean that's gonna happen to the right level. But yeah, the stakes get higher as life goes on, and we got to figure it out. We got to figure some things out sooner or later, and better to figure them out sooner than later. Than later, for sure. Oh man, good conversation.
Yes,
Andy.
it is, Joel. Yes, it is. Yeah. So, guys, with that, just go love your kids.
Yeah, man. And go tell them that you like them and that you love them. That's good too. Let them struggle a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Guys, hey, as always, we're so grateful for each and every one of you listening in. You can head over to dudesanddadspodcast.com for all the show notes, past episodes. Let me also just include, hey, make sure that you're liking and sharing. That's helpful too.
If you get enjoyment out of our episodes, consider supporting us. Go to dudesanddadspodcast.com/support. And we like hearing back from you, feedback from you too. So call our voicemail line, 574-213-8702.
8702. Hey guys, it's been a pleasure being with you. Can't wait to talk next time on the show. And until then, we wish you grace
and peace.